if we are getting caught up in bed rotting, it might be about looking at what is the personal cost and what's going to motivate you out of bed.
Georgina, I'm interviewing you today about rest and work. And you did a radio interview about bed rotting. Can you tell us a bit more, please?
Well, Ruth, it was quite intriguing. So they'd identified this piece of research that it generated this term bed rotting, which I hadn't been familiar with before. But it's referring to the phenomenon of people kind of lounging in bed, scrolling on their social media for potentially hours. So in America, where this study was conducted, they proposed that people are spending about 15 days a year in bed, and for Gen Z it's even higher. So these hours accumulate to about 21 days in bed. And when they looked at the impact of it, they found it was associated with lowered productivity, lower overall life satisfaction, lower mental well-being, interestingly lowered energy as well, and guilt. There was a lot of guilt for kind of not being productive with time. So a lot of negative connotations associated with bed rotting.
Well, what struck me was that someone who is bed rotting, often what they end up doing is cancelling their plans. And that has a really big impact on connecting, which is so important. I mean, hold on, so important. C in Care and Grow is connect. We're big on connecting, connect. But cancelling plans, Georgina?
Well, I mean, connection is fundamental to mental well-being, and I think that is a sign that it's tipping over from being an adaptive form of rest into more of a maladaptive form of rest.
So can you tell me a bit more about adaptive rest then? What's that? How would you define that?
So adaptive rest is intentional, restorative, time limited. It helps reset your stress system. So if we've been unwell, for example, it's really helpful to let our body recuperate and rest, or if we've been through a really stressful season.
So how would you contrast that then with the bed rotting?
Well, the bed rotting is about a desire to escape circumstances. So there's more of an avoidance drive. I want to come back to this adaptive rest because I don't want people to feel like, oh, I can't have my Saturday, Sunday morning lie-in. What's going on here? In fact, one of my colleagues said, I don't want to listen to your radio show thing, Georgina, because that will mean I can't scroll on social media anymore. I'm like, no, that's not what it means. But there's something called, and I love this, the Herkel-Durkel.
Oh, that is lovely. Herkel-Durkel. Sorry, I've got to say it. Herkel-Durkel.
It's a Scottish word, and I did ask a Scottish person that I know if he'd ever heard of this Herkel-Durkeling, and he had not. But I would advocate for the Herkel-Durkel, so an opportunity to rest, to restore, and you might engage a bit on social media. You might want to read. You might want to knit. I don't know what you do, but that's okay. There's something about it's okay to take the pressure off. It's when you're avoiding things that are important to you. I think that's a sign it's not working anymore.
That it's gone a bit too far.
Yeah. Well, I think we know from our psychology, don't we, Ruth, that unfocused time can be quite a vulnerable time for a lot of people. So it's a time when we're more inclined to ruminate, so rehash over old hurts and wounds and get kind of caught up in those old negative feelings, which is not good for our mental well-being, which is why activity is quite a protective factor for our mental health.
So I've got a question for you. Is bed rotting, is that the problem or is it a sign of the problem?
I would go for a sign of the problem. So it might be that we're exhausted, and that's what our body is telling us we're doing too much. Um, or it might be that we're overstimulated and overwhelmed. Um, I think it needs to be a prompt to get us to ask questions of ourselves. So it might potentially indicate red flags for things like depression, stress, and to be honest, for me, most significantly, burnout. Signs that you might be struggling with burnout are chronic energy depletion, negativity, reduced professional performance. It's not just something that occurs in professional context, to be honest. You might find that there's a change in your performance in different areas of your life.
Such as, I suppose there's key points and times, aren't there? I'm thinking about significant hormonal times when burnout can be a factor as well, sort of post pregnancy, baby, menopausal, etc.
Burnout can be related to perfectionism, lack of control, or lack of recognition. So I heard once about a lady, she was a teacher and she worked phenomenally hard. And one day she just couldn't get out of bed.
Now that's unusual, isn't it? Because often there's a build up rather than something all of a sudden. What do you make of
Well,
that?
I think this is the point, Ruth. People don't recognize the burnout. They can just keep going, keep going, keep going. And then they hit that wall and they crash and they cannot go any further. And so, is bed rotting a sign that you're building up towards that crash?
It's
Maybe.
certainly something to look for, isn't it? So, I mean, let's have a think about the different types of rest.
So, this was interesting. So, Dr. Sandra Daunton Smith, she's got a book called Sacred Rest, and she outlined the different types of rest. So there's physical, so that's your sleep, your naps. There's mental, so mental breaks to prevent you having troubles focusing. So, if you're studying, ideally you pause and allow that information to sink in. There's emotional. So, taking a break from people pleasing or performing, creating a space to express your feelings without fear of judgment. She talks about social rest as well, and that's more about being around people who restore you. Yeah, I think we all know that in our lives we can experience people who restore and maybe people who don't so much. And we've got the sensories. They're thinking about what might trigger overwhelm. So, sound, screens, phones.
Oh, Georgina, how much sensory rest do you get from your screens and your phones?
Well, Ruth, usually I'm busy messaging you.
Tell me about it.
Do we need to cut each other out? Oh dear. So then there's creative. So sometimes we can feel a bit uninspired and stuck. So exposure to beauty, to science, to art, to what restores your soul. And then, of course, we've got the spiritual. So, for you, is there a spiritual connection? Is there a faith? Something important to you that perhaps, we don't always give the time and investment that we would like to?
What you're making me think of is Spoon's theory, actually. What's her name, the lady that did that? Christina, somebody.
Christine Miseradino. I'm
Oh,
probably saying that
that's
horribly
probably why I
wrong.
couldn't remember her surname. So,
Something Christine M. Should we
yeah, so
say?
she has the Spoons theory. I think you mentioned it, didn't you, on the interview? But the Spoons theory about that we only have so much capacity each day, and that the number of spoons we have varies according to who we are. If we've got neurodiversity, or if we've got particular stresses and strains, if we're going through a season of grief, perhaps. And so our capacity changes, but we only have a finite number of spoons. So once we've used them up, we then have to decide, are we going to borrow from the next day, or are we just going to sort of keep going, or do we need to stop and restore?
Ooh, yes. I do like that theory. So each spoon is a unit of energy, isn't it? And so if we're unwell, I think we all know that feeling of having less spoons. So I would really encourage people to tune into that. And there's a similar theory around energy accounting, which is about thinking of our energy as a bank account. And some activities withdraw and some activities deposit. So rest would be a deposit.
That makes me think about introversion and extroversion, because introverts can be really drained by having lots of people around, whereas extroverts, that can be quite restorative. So it's knowing your own nuances around that as well, isn't it?
And people with autism will often say, actually, I feel really drained by social interactions. So it's important for us to know ourselves. And I also wanted to mention, it's one of my favourites, Martin Seligman.
Oh, Georgina, we've mentioned that recently on a pod. Are we sure we want to mention him again?
I don't think you can ever mention him too much.
Mind you, we've our three listeners, my mum and two other people. I'm sure they won't mind.
Well, he talks about the deepest emotional satisfaction and best performance comes from using our signature strengths. Now, this is my theory. When we're feeling tempted to bed rot, we might be a bit overwhelmed, and it might be that we're not in that state of flow. We're not utilizing our skills. We're not utilizing our strengths. And that tends to create a lot of disconnect and potentially distress. So there are about 24 signature strengths, and they fall into these clusters. So one cluster is around wisdom and knowledge, which is about your creativity and your curiosity. Another is about courage, so bravery, persistence, honesty. Humanity, which is your love and kindness. Justice, which is teamwork, fairness. Temperance, forgiveness, humility, prudence. Transcendence, it's gratitude, hope, humour. So if you're a creative person, whether or not you're expressing that at work, you probably need to think about, is there a way that I can bring this into my life? How can I bring my strengths in to help me navigate my life? And interestingly, for any leaders out there, there's higher job satisfaction and morale, lower turnover, more creativity and resilience, and better team performance when we use our strengths. So, Reese, I think we will be talking about this again in more depth because it's so important.
So, what's the take-home message then? What's your take-home message from all of this research and reading that you've done recently?
My new friends at the radio booth.
Yes.
Yes. So my take-home message would be approach with curiosity rather than condemnation. Enjoy the odd hurkle-durkle. And if we are getting caught up in bed rotting, in the really negative sense of the term, then I think it might be about looking at what are some of the personal costs and actually what's going to motivate you out of bed. Is it, structuring your weekends, thinking about something nice, but also incorporating time to be a bit slower and more reflective?
Georgina Taylor Adrianson, thank you very much.